Welcome to the Autism Chronicles podcast. My name is Esther. Please follow us on our autism journey as we share personal stories, challenges, breakthroughs, and all the practical tips that we have learned raising our son Ziza. I hope our conversations inspire and encourage people on their own autism journey. This podcast will not give any medical advice, just a space to share, learn, and grow together.
Okay, hi everyone. Welcome to episode 3 of the Autism Chronicles. Buzi, I'm quite impressed that you were able to sit down for 3 episodes. Well done.
I'm getting used to it.
Getting used to it. Okay. So I think last episode we spoke about, getting early assessments, getting, confirming your diagnosis and sort of things like that. And how important it is to get individualized plans and sort of who to see, what questions to ask. And I think this episode, I just wanted to, in terms of specifically building the plan for Ziza, and sort of the impact of that, right? So where would you start?
Okay, so first of all, it's I'd like to say,
I mean, like after the diagnosis and
after the diagnosis, so you now know that it's autism, right? And they've told you, the deficits, they've told you the strengths, what is your child able to do, where he or she has challenges and that kind of thing. It's now, implementation, right? I'd like to say, so autism is not like a medical issue. It's not like malaria and then you are taking medicine or something and it goes away. It's a long journey. It's a long journey. There's a lot to do, therapy and all that. But so most people just say therapy. There are other issues or things going on with that child as well. And I find that there are certain interventions, at least I remember trying to read up on it, and I found that it's not just one way for everybody. Of course, we already said that children are different, right? But then I found that it's not just one kind of intervention, because most people think it's just therapy, right? So it's one of the things is deciding which way you want to go. I know. I just want to mention that after the diagnosis, they're now saying, okay, what intervention do you want to do? I think people have a choice to pick. Of course, the expert is going to tell you this is what I feel you should do. But I think some people just kind of like mix and match here. So I know, for instance, I want to mention that there's biomedical interventions. Like I said, it's not just about speech. It's not just about behavior. Even if it's behavior, there are certain things that are linked to it. So there are biomedical interventions. There's diet, and then there's therapy. Yeah. Right.
So after the diagnosis and getting assessment for Ziza, I think we had a better understanding of Ziza's peculiar sort of challenges.
Yes.
And I think he was about 4 years old at the time, right?
Yes, we got a diagnosis at 4.
And then we started evolving his plan as he grew, right? And I think the best thing was that we were able to come up with our own plan, and sort of started tackling his deficits, as best we could, based on the expert advice that we got
based on the assessment
from the people. And I think it's important that you mentioned that early intervention is sometimes crucial for the outcomes that you eventually get, from children with autism. I think it's all about outcomes. It's all about results, right? It's all about the results. It's all about starting a plan and setting a target and hitting that target and
achieving it
and moving on to the next one. So for Ziza, so if you wanted to, if I asked you now for a list, like a list of interventions that so I think 2 things, right? So number 1, what is like a general list of interventions that you would recommend, number one. And then I think we should sort of go to the one that we used for Ziza and how that worked for him. So what would you start with in terms of the kind of intervention that we number one is what?
So it's it could sound general, but I don't want to be general because again, everything that we share here is our story, right? Our experience. So I'm not speaking for anybody.
We're not giving any medical advice.
I'm not giving any medical advice, but yes, I mentioned that we decided to tackle it, if I can use that word, like in 3 different ways. I know we did diet, we did the biomedicals, we did therapy, right? So with therapy, it's a lot because there's a list of therapies, and I'll mention them in a minute, right? So I'd just like to say with the diet, clearly you mentioned a day when Ziza like pooped and the whole place was...
but the diet wasn't... I think the first one would be like an ABA, right?
No, so I'm getting there.
Okay.
I'm getting there. So the diet would address certain things that if your child, if he fits that, the need, to do diet or, but generally people just say, okay, it's autism, since nobody knows exactly what has caused it, people just generally want to go clean, which was what we did. Remember, we just jumped right into it, even without advice from any experts, right? We just went, okay, we're going to clean up his food and make sure that he's not taking even our environment, the house. You talked about proofing the house and all that, but you forgot that we tried to use less chemicals and stuff like that, just kind of going organic, right? So some people choose that kind of intervention. Then with the biomedicals, I'll also remind you how would go the whole night. Caesar had issues sleeping. He would stay awake throughout the night till the morning. And you are so sleepy going to work by 6 and that kind of thing. So biomedicals came into that because there was a need. So I'm not speaking for anybody. Your child may not have any of those things. But the most popular, I'll say that everybody does, is obviously therapy. And therapy addresses a whole load of things, right? So, but I think we should just share based on Ziza's, like the symptoms or the challenges that he had, right? So we already mentioned that he had behavior issues, he had speech issues. So let me start with the behavior. To address the behaviors, right? We obviously got a behavioral therapist, to do something called ABA.
So ABA is number
ABA
one.
is number one. So applied behavior analysis, and it's basically trying to, how do I put this? Encourage the child to have more positive behaviors, right? And then remove the negative ones.
Okay.
Yes. And, so...
Negative behaviors by whose definition? Like...
Yeah, because so we're talking about typical, and autism is a whole different thing, right? So typically a child shouldn't behave that way, or if they do, at least with you correcting them, they know, okay, this, you're not supposed to do this or anything like that. But we're talking about someone who doesn't understand, and it's not even about understanding. There's always something causing that behavior. So the therapy addresses like the root cause and then tries to kind of help the child along the way to know this is how, things should be, that kind of thing. So definitely with any behavioral issues, ABA is the way to go.
Okay.
Because that addresses all the issues, yeah.
And then what's the next one?
Just, so with speech, we mentioned speech at all. Ziza, I don't know if you can remember. Can you remember? I think Ziza had like his first words. Would you say 6, 5?
He was 7. I remember clearly.
7.
I remember the day. I remember what I was even doing.
Yeah.
I remember what I was doing, and I remember that he said. I think the first thing that he said to me was water. I think he said water. I was confused because I hadn't heard him speak. Like, it's sometimes people...
Nothing like daddy or mommy or anything like that.
Because I never heard him say daddy before or mommy. And then one day I think I was downstairs, No, it was in Abuja. So I was in the living room, and then he just came in, and he had those his headsets,
Air defenders.
the air defenders, yes, and then he had that little tablet that he was using, and he just walked towards me, and he just said, "Water." I said, "What?" He said, "Water." I remember I don't think you were at home. Were you at home that day?
I can't remember.
I was like, oh my God, this guy, he spoke. And I remember that he now of course now held my hand and dragged me to the kitchen, put my hand on the fridge. So I knew he was telling me, open the fridge and
just get some water. Yeah.
So I think that was the first word that I sort of heard him say. And yeah, so speech therapy is basically to help with that verbal communication, right?
Yeah.
But I think even the speech therapy with him, I remember we used quite a lot of things like the visual aids, the cards. Remember the cards, so that
to help him like identify things and associate them. Yes,
with
so things around the house, things outside the house.
Like the house was full of cards. Cards,
building social stories, things like that. Using pecs and that was a lot of work. Again, I'm not a speech therapist, but we talked about working with your team. So we needed to understand what they were doing, and we needed to do that with him at home as well. So we had to just understand what that was all about. Yeah, and it was a lot of work. I know that one of the things that I really pushed back on in terms of speech therapy was, there are some autistic people who are just nonverbal.
Yes.
Even after years of speech therapy, they just don't get the words. They are not able to communicate verbally. And I think here I'd like to just, encourage someone to not insist, because I think that's what I did. I just wanted him to speak. At some point, I think we tried what do you call it? I've forgotten now. Sign language.
Oh yeah.
Yes, I went for a seminar, and then the lady talked to me when I complained about my son not speaking and all that. I think we talked about other means of communication. Speaking is not the only way to communicate, and she tried to get me to introduce sign language to see if you could pick up on that and at least make his needs known and all that to us. But I just didn't want to do sign language. I didn't want him to do. I think in my mind it's like if we learned sign language and he if he had learned it and he got used to it, I thought that would in a way stop him from wanting, and he wouldn't want to speak. So for me, I just wanted him to speak, and I think now looking back at that time, I think there's, I feel like you're taking that away, because if the child could communicate, if Ziza could communicate to us at that point, I would have been very happy. I mean, at least then we would have known, because, it was a struggle. And it wasn't just about us knowing, like what's he thinking, does he want something, especially times when maybe he has a tummy ache, ear ache, he's not able to communicate these things. I was always worried, but beyond that, it was just like at least let him just be able to tell us something. And then for him, on his own end, it caused a lot of frustration. If you remember,
he most of his tantrums came from
lots of tantrums,
not being able to say what he was,
and he was always so angry. In fact, there was a time he started getting physical. He would attack Zara and Salome, try to fight them.
I mean, even me once.
So I never experienced that with him, but I know that he did that to you guys and all that, because he was frustrated, trying to like point at something or maybe drag you to get you to do something, and we just didn't understand. So imagine if he had like sign language. And even though he couldn't speak, he could just communicate.
If I remember, Zara did a better job of understanding that. Zara somehow she understood. More than me, but I guess because they were close in age as well, and maybe at time. Okay.
So speech therapy and that has actually helped a lot. It's taken a long time, but we're not where we want to be, but.
Listen, the amount of words that he says now, I never thought that he would
say them.
So like, I'm not even. like I don't even have any complaints, and because like
Really?
I mean, for someone who didn't say a word until he was 7 years old, 7 years of silence, and then today he can literally tell me anything. He can literally tell me what he needs, right? So I wish we could have longer. Of course, I wish we could have longer conversations and all that. But at the moment, I know that if he's ill, he can tell me, oh, my tummy hurts, or he can tell me my leg is. I remember the first time he told me my leg is paining me. I was like, oh, so like, because like, he had that problem with his foot, with his right foot. And I always wondered, is his bone broken? You know how many times I've gone to check his bone, if he had a broken bone. They said, no, there's no broken bone. I'm like, okay, what's going on? And so for the first time he told me, my leg is paining me. I said, okay, fine, come on. And I rubbed this thing for him. So some balm, on the leg. So now he can say when he's hungry.
Yeah.
He can say when he wants to go to bed, when he can ask for his tablet, ask for his,
Yeah, even though he's not having like a full-blown conversation or something, but he's able to just,
but
communicate.
It also amazes me how much we overestimate language and communication. I don't know if that makes sense.
It does.
Like when you have a full vocabulary,
It does.
It's amazing how you can understand somebody with just
a look
3 or 4 words or something like that. And I think for Ziza, that's what we had to learn, that one, because
to understand other.
Sometimes he only has 2 words for you. And
you have to just,
you better just figure out what
make out,
to say.
yes.
Because so he's not going to say,
in those 2 words,
hello, daddy, this what happened. He just, I mean,
those 2 words could be a whole story of what happened today.
He just say, what's that one that he just say? He just say, go to the kitchen, right? And I know that, okay, food is required, you know what to do. And, and once he looks at the clock and it's time for lunch, he just says, go to the kitchen. And then right? He doesn't have to tell you.
Oh, it's 1 o'clock.
It's 1 o'clock.
1 o'clock means, it's time
get my lunch.
Yes, and all that. So, yeah. Okay. Well, the thing is also, don't be like me, is what I'll tell other people. Be open to other, you just mentioned, other forms of communication and all that. Don't just, I mean, it's good to do the speech therapy. I'm not saying don't do speech therapy, but while working with your child, be open to other.
So if you could go back, you'd have done that sign language.
I would have even gotten him an assistive device that would have made it easier to just point at things, and there's so much now. There's there's apps on iPad. There's some, it verbalizes, so if the child clicks on it, it talks out and all that. So I mean, there's a lot, really. There are lots of resources now to use that would actually help. We wouldn't have gone through all that. He wouldn't have been so frustrated and all, So definitely, I would have done things differently.
Okay. What's the next one?
Okay, so there's occupational therapy as well. Part of a child's development is developing their motor skills, being able to. So simple things like holding a pencil, you need your motor skills, either your gross motor skills or your fine motor skills. Buttoning up your shirt, putting your pants on, lacing up your shoes, things like that. And a lot of kids on the spectrum are not able to do simple things like that. They actually struggle a lot.
Yes.
So it's the word occupational therapy, in doing things right. So they have to learn.
There's some things that
he struggles with
dressing, and that's why we started buying the Velcro shoes.
Yes,
I remember. Those lace shoes, he used to struggle with them, man.
Yes.
So I think we just switched to buying the Velcro shoes or shoes that he could sort of slip on. And I remember when he got his, I bought those black ones he could slip on, and he just wore them. He was so happy.
It's easy. So now it's all about
oh my God,
making his life easy.
Imagine how much in his mind, because he can't talk, how much in his mind he'd be saying, these guys, what's with these laces?
Yes.
And with the zippers. But now he's good with zippers now. He's good with zippers.
He's okay. He can button up his shirts without, missing 1 or 2 spots or something. He can tie his laces, make a bow. May not be neat, but at least he can do that. Yes. And that took, because, again, learning, what that's all about, so that when the therapist works with him, I know what to expect. I know what they are doing. I mean, I've been in sessions where I just stood by the side and watched. And it's a lot of work because it requires, apart from just being able to use your fingers, even to focus on the task.
Yeah.
I just saw how difficult it was for him to do daily activities. And for me, well, some people will push. It's good that he learns. I know that if it's necessary, he can do it, even if he struggles. But also, I feel like, why should we make, I mean, there's so much around in the world right now, and things change every day. So as much as I can, let me just make it easy for him. So instead of shirts with buttons, I decide, okay, most of his t-shirts, it's easy, he takes it off, puts it on. He can wear joggers or pants that have elastic and that kind of thing. Like you said, shoes with Velcro instead of having to tie your shoes. But it's also good to develop those skills, to be honest. So it's good that therapy actually addresses that,
Yeah, but I mean, at the time, fair enough. But at the time, I was always thinking about, because, I was always concerned about reducing his frustration. Because remember how he used to get frustrated with those things and then get angry. And then once he gets angry, he starts
Screaming.
spiraling, and he starts getting, So for me, I was always trying to think, okay, how can I reduce the frustration for this boy, right?
Yes.
By making his life easier around the thing. So it wasn't that I don't feel that those skills need to be developed. It was more that, like, I was watching him struggle. There's a time when just wearing his shoes, he would try like 5 times. Then by the time he tried the 6th time, he just starts screaming.
I'm smiling because I'm smiling because I'm sure some of the therapists would have been like, oh my God, this mommy, because it would be like communication book. Practice, let's use that practice. They had this, for example, they had these things. They may not give him a particular shirt, but then there are resources that come. It's just maybe on a wooden frame and then with buttons. So the child keeps practicing just to button them. Yeah. And then sometimes it could be something on a board with like the holes that you have on your shoes. Yeah. They have to like lace it. And they'll have that at school, and then he'll practice. So when they expect that when he's at home, since he has his shoes, like you're going to church or you're going out as a family, allow him to get himself dressed. And that used to frustrate me because I'm in a hurry, I want to go somewhere. I don't have the time to actually allow him to do those things. So a lot of times I just helped him to do them. Like, we just need to go and we have to go, and the therapist was like, you need to let him. I mean, we're talking about, you're always worried about independence, especially now he's older. So I feel like it's better to let them, no matter how small, how slow they are at doing certain tasks, just let them. So going back now, I would have done it differently. Maybe if we had to be somewhere at say maybe 9 or something, I would have started earlier, and just so that I just give him the time to kind of go through it and get it done. So
okay, so that's very key, occupational therapy. And then the other one is
so social skills. We mentioned that he had he just had a problem just socializing with people, being around people and that kind of thing. But I think he's a lot better now. You mentioned in episode 1, I think, if I'm right, about Zara complaining.
On the social skills side, it wasn't really so much the skills themselves. It was like whether they were appropriate. Like, that's a very interesting word, like appropriate.
That's another side.
Appropriate, because it's one thing for somebody to be social, another thing for it to be appropriate, right? So, like,
not getting in people's spaces, right?
Like how that family was, where we went somewhere. Was you and him? And then you got there, and he just went to the table and started eating their food.
And picked up their popcorn, a bowl of popcorn, and started to eat.
And then you can imagine that family saying, wow, who is this kid? Like, from, So, like, knowing that, okay, look, that food is for another family, or it's not mine. Like, there was a day that we went somewhere, and I think I was sitting down, and then there was food, and he just went and grabbed somebody's. I think the person was even still eating. And he just went and took food off the person's plate. And I'm like, you don't even know this person. I was quite worried about those kind of things. And it's one of the things that I think with parents or caregivers of people who have autism is just being outside the house. You're just afraid.
It's too much. You never know what to expect. Yes.
And because not everybody is tolerant. Some people are quite,
they just don't want to.
They just don't want to understand. So you don't want your son to go and meet the wrong person and they say, this, and you know how Nigerians are. This boy has bad home training, and then the next thing you know, it becomes a whole.
I can imagine how draining it is for parents, with special needs children, because you're constantly having to. I wouldn't say make excuses, like just explaining
that's exactly what it is, right?
Well, I'm one person who looks for any opportunity to kind of like teach people about autism, right? But even with that, I'm always advocating. I just wait for the next thing to happen where I can just tell you what autism is, like he's autistic, and just try to get, because we're talking again, when we started, I said it's all about awareness and understanding and acceptance. And that's my focus all the time. Anywhere I am, I'm just trying to just educate the next person. But even with that, some days I just don't want to engage. I don't want to have to explain why he did what he did and that kind of thing. But to bring something up, are you not happy about the lanyard that they have now? We didn't have that. I wish we had that when we started this journey, right?
I mean, I think having something people can see and know what's
and just
going on.
know.
But it also depends on who cares. Like in the UK,
and that's if
for
they
example,
even know.
People see and they know what it is. Or if you wear like the sunflower or something, they know what it is.
They know
and then
this
they treat you appropriately.
Person, yes.
In Nigeria, you have to literally wear a sign that says, I have autism, please stay with so people will see the line and they know what it is. Which is where what you say about acceptance is important, but I think that's a different episode, right? I think today we're just talking about what we. I think social skills was the one, and then the other one was
just generally interacting with people, interacting with their peers, like you said, in an appropriate way, and also we mentioned nonverbal cues, like now. When Ziza is doing something and I give him that look, he actually knows. He knows, but he didn't understand what it was.
For me, look, I have to say something like, hey. If I say hey, then he'll stop. Or like we have some keywords, like if I say hands by your side.
Yes.
That's my favorite one. Because I don't know who started that thing. Was it you or me?
It was during therapy, actually.
Yeah. But that one that sentence has really helped us a lot. Because that thing was my because I was like, thank God.
He should just keep his hands.
Wherever Ziza is, once you just say hands by your side, he just stops what he's doing. And I think that really helped.
No touching.
That really helped me a lot, because like when I go out with him and I'm seeing that he's about to start getting crazy, I just say hands by your side and he just stops. And then it gives us time to recalibrate, which was very, very good. And I think at number 6 was I think it was 7. I think it was parent training and support. I think you mentioned that one was very key as well. Training parents and training support. But I don't think it was only training and parents. It's how I think those parent support groups, people don't know how important they are. Especially in Africa, in Nigeria, where people want to keep it a secret. I think it's a mistake. Like the more you keep it a secret, the less help you get. I think for us, meeting other parents and joining those support groups, like you could hear similar stories and find, similar solutions together and share together. So I think, they are also very, very important for like the emotional support, right? Like I told you, like recently when we had the parent meeting at Ziza School, I felt a lot better talking to other, I see other dads there as well.
Very few.
But very few dads, but I don't know why, but that's another episode again. But
maybe like you said, their focus is on things.
On things, yes.
That's what you said. But I don't want to go into that.
Again, it's not a criticism, because I believe someone has to. It's an important thing. Someone has to think about how we're going to pay for all this stuff. And someone has to think about.
Are thinking about things as well. So
yeah, sure. So no, I'm not. So it's not like a. But I'm saying that I don't want to criticize any dad. Like when I go to an autism meeting and I don't see the dad there, I don't want to criticize any dad for not being there, because like you don't know the situation. You don't know the specific situation. So like, everyone has to manage the struggle on their own.
Yeah. What I want to say is this: training is absolutely necessary, because again, it keeps you. This is a whole different topic, yeah. Because when you are aware, it's about self-development, really. Even with or without a special needs child, right? You're constantly trying to develop yourself. So, having a situation like this, you definitely want to know what works, what doesn't work, that kind of thing. What can I do? Especially when it comes to other people working with your child, you need to, be at the top of your game. Know what they're doing. Are they doing the right thing? Are they implementing our plan the way it should be implemented? That kind of thing. So you have to constantly train yourself. And I'm not saying go and have do a PhD or university or anything, but at least just know a general idea. Like about the challenges your child has. What can we do to help? Those kind of things. So constantly training yourself. And you mentioned something about the support groups. Support groups help, but over time I've also found that, and you talked about people not wanting to talk about the diagnosis and stuff. So even in the support groups, I find that it's difficult for people to open up and share their stories. You'd be surprised. This is a group that, everyone, so let's say it's a WhatsApp group. It's not like, okay, it's a WhatsApp group for sales and marketing personnel or something like that, and then you have a few autism, parents with autistic kids or something. This is a support group where everybody in that group has a child on the spectrum, and it's still difficult for people to share. You're constantly getting people, talk about this. What are your experiences? So somebody else learns, and so that if there's somebody who knows what you should do, they can also guide you and all that. Yeah. But it's that's story for another day. But it just shows you how people it's just like a case of the ostrich, just burying your head in the sand. It's like, maybe if I don't talk about it, it's going to go away or something, and that's not the case.
Okay, and then sensory integration therapy. It's quite similar, right?
Yeah, it's similar. We mentioned Caesar having sensory issues. I think in the first episode we talked about him hugging too hard, maybe not feeling something. We talked about his aversion to loud noise, and even he's not responding to noise, because it was like two different things. And then one thing that we never really, I think most people don't notice, is when it's sunny outside, his eyes, there's a way it affects him. He's not able to handle, oh my God, he's not able to handle that, it's either closing one eye or something, because like the sun rays, Sun rays at all. And even with the noise, it was like little, some things you don't even hear, because you don't, that's funny, some things you don't hear.
Like, this I can hear something from.
We don't even know what he hears.
You know how they say, with dogs, they hear very high frequency.
Yes.
Like, Caesar will be hearing something, like, I'm like, how did he hear that? Like, and I think part of that is maybe why he couldn't sleep at night. Who knows?
Yeah, because
maybe he was picking up too much.
Yeah, I think I figured out after a while that even having the AC on in the room,
he would,
was too much for him to handle. So he had to learn. For a long time, maybe a couple of years or so, he couldn't sleep without blocking his ears. And that's one, because we never thought to buy him like earplugs or anything like that. Though I don't know if he would have kept them on throughout the night, but he would literally just put his index fingers into his ears and sleep that way till morning, just to drown out the noise and that kind of thing. So
but then when we got his thing with the ocean sounds and the cricket,
was calming.
I think he prefers the cricket sounds.
The crickets,
and he put those ones on before he sleeps.
Yeah. Another time it was like whales or something on the ocean.
Yeah, he had those
right?
ones. Yeah.
You had to. But I'm so happy that I think you were the one who figured that out. And got that
At
thing,
least, thank God, give me some credit.
So that has helped.
Because I think I was researching something and somebody was telling me. So actually, I found that thing because of myself, because of my own insomnia. Remember I had
something to make you sleep better.
And I was talking to someone and I don't know who it was, and the person said, "Why don't you try music?" And I was like, "I listen to a lot of music all the time. I'm in the
and
music
it doesn't
business,
do
right?
anything. Yeah.
And when I listen to music, I don't sleep because I like the music too much. So what happens is that
it keeps you awake.
Music, I keep saying, "Okay, what's the next song?" And then I'm awake before I know it is 4 a.m. So, and I don't know who it was. I can't remember who it was that advised me and said, "Hey, look, there's this thing where you can play ocean sounds or cricket sounds," and I'm like, this thing may actually work for autism. And I went online. I think it was Amazon, and I just said, sound sleep for autism. I think I just saw all this stuff. I'm like, wow. I started looking, and I found the one that we finally got, which was the one where you can pick the sound, and then also had the lights. Because I noticed he doesn't like natural light like sunlight. He does like colored light. So I remember
like calming colors or something. Colors. Yeah.
And remember, that's when we were trying to work on the sensory room.
Yeah.
When we're working on the center.
Yes.
And and I was reading about sensory rooms.
Yes.
And how kids with autism sometimes like that, the sounds and the colors, and then how they like the listlessness. So I want to talk about zero. What's that tank? Zero gravity. That tank where you don't feel anything.
Oh, okay. Yes.
And
yes.
And I have to. Of course, one cannot afford to buy their own zero gravity tank in the house, but I took it fine. So what's the next best thing? So it was now converting his room at night to that sort of environment where I could
suit his sensory needs.
Reduce the sensory, the abrasive. I'll use the word abrasive. So we're trying to reduce the abrasive sounds in the room, take out the ambient noise from outside, and then bring in the kind of noise that he can manage. And so everywhere would be dark. He liked it pitch dark, but he liked it pitch dark with those lights.
With those lights, yeah.
And as soon as I started seeing those lights, and then the cricket sound would play, or he would switch to the whale sounds, or he would switch to depending on how he feels. And I think he started having better night's sleep.
Yeah.
So and then I think the last one and one of the major ones is the diet one now. Yeah.
Which I feel like now, like I said, we just jumped right into it, right? We didn't even wait. Because one thing to say is, you mentioned that we got a diagnosis when Ziza was 4. So we had, and we knew he had autism, based on our research and everything, by the time he was like 18 months or even before that, I think. So we had already started doing things while we were waiting to find a solution, right? Or to find somebody to explain to us and to make a plan and all that. So we jumped right into the diet. But I just want to say that there's a connection. I don't know if it's proven or not, but there's a gut to brain connection, which I'm sure scientists have an explanation for it.
It's the microbes. So
okay.
They said the microbes, in the guts that carry information to the brain.
Yeah.
And I think it's been linked to quite a lot of mental issues as well. So even people that have bipolar disorder and things like that, it's all linked to those microbes in the gut. So a lot of his early issues from a medical point of view were sort of gut related. And I know that we had this period where we did a lot, especially. So I think that was probably my area more, because I was really the one really studying the science and trying to. I remember one time we got the glutenese. Remember the glutenese?
To help break down.
Where it will break down anything he eats. So after every meal, we have to give him the glutenese to break down the thing. We had to move to probiotics to increase the healthy bacteria in his gut as well.
Yeah.
And then we went off, I think we went off gluten. I remember then we were living in Nigeria, finding gluten-free food was impossible, and even the ones that were available were so expensive. I remember, when each time I was on a trip to the UK or somewhere, I would come back with a whole box of food. And a friend of ours, Ihane Igbe, Ihane was really a great support at that time, because every
Getting
time
gluten-free
every time
food.
Ihane traveled, he would call and say, "Hey, can I bring back a box for you? And Ihane would, pack those Ihane would pack those his boxes. And I also remember that, eventually we started, I got to a point where I understood, his diet really just changed. So we just took him. Even now, he doesn't eat any sugar. Doesn't like
processed food.
Doesn't like processed food. I think it's great. It's better for him than us. Like
healthy eating.
So he's a full healthy eater, and I think that change, even that smelly poop. But
at some point, yes.
I think
definitely.
So I cannot overemphasize. So again, just to toe your line. It's not every child on the spectrum who has that, but if your child does have those gut issues, you need to be very, very aggressive in sorting them out. Like whatever he takes in his mouth is important. I remember there's a whole range of things we used to buy: the powder, the vitamins powder, the probiotics,
part of biomedicals, the supplements and stuff.
The supplements, because we couldn't find some of the food, so we just give him the vitamins instead, the omega-3
and
omega-3, all those things that we were doing daily.
So people supplement. I just want to mention that one of the things I really, really was careful not to do was just start him on medication, because I find a lot of people say, my son is hyperactive, or he can't sleep. We had that a lot. Caesar didn't sleep for the longest time. We had that issue, but we never. I remember them telling me when we said, we complained to the doctor, he doesn't get to sleep, and they said, melatonin can help.
I was totally against.
But I was against that, and I'm not saying anybody giving their child melatonin is doing something bad. For me, I just wanted to do, and that's why diet was important for us. Clean up his food, what was going into his body and all. I think it's important. But then again, some people just feel, once you find out, my son has autism, and like you said, things are expensive and they're not able to do anything. It's almost, it has become something normal for people to just say, take him off gluten, take him all this. I just want to say some children are actually okay eating gluten. Yeah. So the first thing to think of is actually see a doctor. And don't forget that even though we jumped right into it, like I said, eventually you got him tested.
Yeah.
And the test actually showed that he had gluten.
It is with gluten. It wasn't only gluten; it was also
and casein. Yeah, so any dairy products and stuff, we had to take that. But some
tomatoes.
Some children
are
okay.
Loves stew. I was quite confused that time. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's another the things that they end up not tolerating, or their body doesn't tolerate, is usually the thing that they like to eat the most. Yeah. So
so just to with Ziza, I think we got a lot of positive outcomes from doing the therapy. But I wanted to bring up the point of even finding the right kind of therapist, because
that's very important.
Remember that our 419.
Please don't call anybody 419.
But that's what it was.
Don't call anybody 419.
No, but that's what it was.
The truth is, we're talking about autism in Nigeria now, so it's different, because again, it's not systemic like you mentioned, and even with our health sector. You can just...
It seems to me that you're about to make excuses.
No, I'm not making excuses. It's the way things work. So certain things, you just go to... Some people will be like, if I go to the hospital, I have to pay consultation, I have to see the doctor. And then some people are sick and the doctor says, we have to admit you. They're like, no, give me the medication. I will go home. I'll come back tomorrow for you to check on me. So I'm not trying to make excuses for anybody, but it's the same. So the thing is, this is a system that I think there's a breakdown somewhere, but that has been created by a vacuum, right? And the fact that things are not in place. Hold on. Hold on.
1 second now.
Yeah.
We had a therapist working with our son for 1 year.
Yes.
1 whole year.
Yes.
And then we realized at the end of the year that the person was not a certified therapist.
Well, that says something about us also, because you should have done your homework. You take the blame.
I take the blame. But what do you call it? That's not 419. I don't know.
Yeah, so
I don't know what 419
so here's the thing, and I'm not trying to say Nigeria is doing... We can do better. We've come a long way, but things are better now. But then the thing is, I talked about having a vacuum, right? So no therapists, and autism was, at the time we started this Ziza's journey, it was like meeting people, nobody, when you mentioned autism, they didn't really know about it. Even when he started school, let me just remind you, when he started school, when we finally found a school in Abuja, that period, they didn't have enough therapists to do that. Most of the time, the person has to so when there's a need.
I remember that guy.
When there's a need, Mr. Francis, God bless him.
God bless that guy.
So,
Mr. Francis, wherever you are, God bless you.
Okay, so when there's a need, like somebody brings a child and like us, you are like desperate. We have a plan. We know that we need to start now. We don't have anywhere to take him for them to do this. And they're like, okay, we have this person. Most of the time it was like a couple of weeks or maybe at best, maybe a month or 2 months training or something. And the person learned on the job.
Okay, so again, I mean...
So I'm not saying they shouldn't...
I don't want to... So again, I agree with you. I'm not going to argue. I'm saying the responsibility is on both sides.
Yes.
I think for the parents, do your research. Check this person, check this person, check the person.
Make sure they are qualified.
And I will say for people who are therapists, I think when you make a commitment to take care of people's children, it's a very serious commitment. There are many things you can play with, but you don't play with people's kids. So I think on both sides...
in certain countries, you can't do that.
I mean,
your license is taken away from you. You'll be arrested and jailed. But
So just to, because we are running out of time on this episode, so just to talk about the positive outcome that we had for Caesar when we applied a few of these things, right? What sort of changes did we see? I have mine, so I'm just wondering which one is yours. I wrote mine down, right? The ones that's sort of stuck to me. But I think before I go to man, I think the reason why I talked so much about the parents knowing is that I mean, we even had some therapists for Ziza who I knew I could do better than them.
For sure.
Like some people, I bounced them. I said, thank you very much, but I can do this thing better than you.
I can tell that. But
and that's because of the amount of information that
you are, because you did your research.
Yeah. So for me, I think the biggest one for me, and I put it on my list. You have your own list, Abby.
Just go on.
So I have my list. So the biggest one that really got me in terms of outcomes was the guts one. I was very happy with the outcome because that used to worry me a lot. It used to keep me awake at night, just thinking, this boy can eat anything and he wasn't healthy. He constantly struggled with his gut, constantly was ill. So I think when we started applying all the therapies, on the gut health side, the outcomes were almost immediate.
You could see the changes.
There was massive changes, right? Massive changes. Even like the weight gains sort of slowed down. The sleeping got better. Like I said, the
excess energy.
The excess energy reduced. Even like I think the hyperactiveness also sort of really got better. So for me, that's one of the main ones. And then the second one for me was that somehow that's when he became potty trained. Because he was wearing diapers until he was like 6.
Oh, right? You don't have to tell me. I was the one buying boxes and boxes of diapers.
So I think when he got potty trained, I was also very happy. Like finally, he can, because like before, like...
Because going out,
6-year-olds,
I mean, it was like going out. I never told you about... I think you had traveled. He had like a tummy ache or something, or he was running a fever or something. I know we're in the hospital, right? And we waited to have a consultation with a doctor, and this doctor was just lousy. No empathy, nothing. I don't even know how that person is a doctor, really. Because some people just think of something and they can't help themselves. They just blurt it out, right? That. And so he kept saying to Ziza, like, open your mouth, because he wasn't sure if his tonsils were inflamed. And I understood that he needed to check. I had already explained that, he can't do that, So, and the doctor was... Next thing he goes is, how old is he? Because, they get all your information. He's like, this child is 6. Why is he Madam, why is he still wearing diapers? I almost cried that day because another doctor actually noticed, and God bless her, Dr. Izua. She's a medical doctor who happens to have a son her son has autism as well. She kept looking at me and she could feel like she knew I was clearly upset. And so when the doctor he got up to get something, she just said, you know what, I'll handle this case myself. And so she took a look at my face and she said, I know what you're going through. And so she found a way to just able to have, examine him and,
Okay. So what are the things on your list?
Yeah, definitely. So social interaction improved.
Yes, that's true.
Even with siblings at home. So not just outside, but because then you can even see people as strangers. But even with his sister at home, it was like a whole lot getting him to just talk to her. But then over time, he was able to, get into it. Remember Zara would get upset. Like she used to complain that, why isn't he playing with me and all that? My brother isn't playing with me. And then at that time, when that change happened, do you remember? He was constantly pulling her to go outside and play. She's like, "Oh, Ziza, I'm tired. I'm tired." So that one was, it was.
I think for me
glaring.
Also, the tantrums reduced, which was great, because I think the tantrums reduced because the communication improved.
Yeah.
And then now, because he could say what he wanted and he could show signs of when he was hungry and whatever, and he could tell you when
he felt understood.
I think he felt a little more understood, and then so that frustration sort of reduced.
Yeah.
So I think for me that was also a big outcome.
Yeah.
And the sleeping.
That sleep. The first day he slept through the night. Oh, we could sleep too. I was going crazy that period,
And like just about the sleeping, like a lot of my friends, people like sort of like, a lot of my friends didn't really sort of understand how our life changed.
Yes.
Because of Ziza. Like I started going out a lot less.
Yeah. Nobody, they're like, what's wrong with you guys? You guys have become so boring.
Like, man, you don't understand that. Like, if
I just want to
if I get some sleep in the afternoon like this, just get like 3 or 4 hours sleep, I'll be very happy. Like, because with this, you know that you probably be awake until the next day, right? And for me, I had to. I'm sure it was worse for you because like when I was because we're not even living in the same town at the time, and I would be out of town for a month or whatever. But when I was at home, I remember like, man, I just know that this is going to be a long night, right? And then, you had the final one.
Yeah, so just less sensitivity. Now he's able to hug you without squeezing you, whatever it is, even with the noise. Now we go for weddings, we go for parties, even if we're seated right beside the speaker, which is strange. These are like no tantrums, no shouting.
Yeah.
He knows it's too loud. I'm telling you, he just knows it's too loud, but he's just able to handle it.
His earpiece on and
yes, so but no screaming. He does this sometimes. Like when I scold Zara or something, I have a loud voice, right? So he just looks at it like, oh, he wants to get upset. So sometimes he's like, without saying anything,
don't
man, your voice is loud. Please, can you just manage to reduce it? So yeah, I think
so just for people who are listening, just to run through. So I'm going to run through the list again. So in terms of intervention, we've said,
yes,
or mostly you said ABA is number one, right? Which means applied behavior analysis. It's important for you to get. Second one is speech therapy, which is important for you to look at. The other one is occupational therapy, which deals more with daily life skills and things like that. Physical therapy, of course, for kids who have specific challenges with skills. Social skills, right? Social training skills. And then we talked about early childhood, education programs, and again working with the school, like we said before in the earlier podcast, in the last episode, and having specialized school programs as well. We talked about training for parents and for families.
Having support groups as well, yes.
We talked about the sensory integration therapy, which deals directly more with helping them process.
And lastly,
stimuli, and then lastly, the guts and the diet side for kids who actually need it, right? So,
last words. What I'll say is, every child is different. Don't take a one size fits all approach. And also early intervention. Start early if you want to see more positive outcomes, right? And then on the part of therapy, again, please do your research before you get anybody on your team, and beware of people who...
So you always have to be the MD of your team.
Yes, you have to take charge. Beware of therapists who do everything. In one person, he's a speech therapist, he's a behavioral therapist, he's an occupational therapist. He doesn't have any area of specialization. So those people, I'll stay away from them. So I think that's my...
So basically, every child is different, but every child can be helped.
Exactly. Basically. Yes.
Okay.
You did well.
Thank you. I try.
You have become like a daddy expert.
I have my moments.
See you explaining autism and talking stuff, you know. So
I have my moments. So, I mean, thanks for everyone who sort of listened today and watched today. I think the next episode we'll be talking more about how things change. I think how things change. So look forward to you guys joining us on that one as well. Thanks.
Bye.